Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Disgustingly Resilient podcast, and this episode of A Perfect Plague for. So, for those who don't know, this is the second episode of the series where basically we're going to look at other factions, break down our matchup against them, the tricks that they have, and some ways that we can use our abilities to fight back against it. As you can tell, today's episode is on, unfortunately, the Eldar. This has drove me insane, this episode. I've never been so annoyed and worked up reading through some rules of some things and just sitting there going, why is this so busted? But alas, here we are. This topic was voted for by my members of the YouTube channel. So there was a poll. Eldar managed to sneak out the victory on the win. Therefore, that is the topic of today's video. The next one obviously will be going up again as a poll, and going forward, if you want to have your say in it, feel free to become a member. If you like this content, like, subscribe, all that kind of things. But let's get straight into it. So, Eldar. So just a quick sort of like reminder of when we talk about to making the perfect plague, we need to understand these core points: army identity and playstyle. Every army plays differently. Surprise, because, the game would be kind of boring if every army did the exact same thing. So we need to understand how to approach different matchups depending on how their playstyle is in comparison to ours. Detachments and core strategies that people use, even within the same detachments, people are going to play things very differently. You might have a vehicle heavy list versus an infantry heavy list. And those two archetypes are going to require different types of approach and different ways to obviously think about the game and how to beat them. What is the meta units at the moment? So these are the units that you're going to see in a lot of lists, sort of like list archetypes if there's any dominating ones. Death Guard, I think, is in a unique position with a few others where we have actually quite viable builds, quite a variety of them as well, whereas other armies aren't so much. They tend to just have one or two, and you see the same sort of units taken over and over and over. So obviously understanding what are the strong units and what the strong lists is going to help us in order to prepare for those armies. We obviously need to understand the aggressor and the defender. It's one of the most important skills you can have in competitive 40k. For those who don't know, maybe tune in for the first time, this is the ability to look at a game and understand, if I take the passive approach and I sit here on my points and I score some secondaries, will I win? If yes, then it's on the opponent to make something happen to make the state of the game change. If it's no, and you realise they will actually win against you by playing passive, then it's basically on you to make plays and make things happen in the game to influence the outcome. Because if you just sit back when you should have been the aggressor, you're going to lose. But at the same time, if your opponent is sitting back while you know you'll win the passive game, then you don't really need to push anything. You can happily sit there and just go, okay. And last but not least, obviously, counters. Some armies naturally do have counters. Eldar, for example, are not really Death Guard's favourite matchup. We don't tend to like highly manoeuvrable, high damage output armies because it turns out when you move 4 inches and 5 inches, it's kind of hard to catch things that have multiple ways to move in a turn. Surprising, I know. But we have to understand what are our weak matchups, what are our strong matchups, and what are our, even Stevens matchups. So this is just a quick overview about what we need to think about, what we're going to talk about, and what it's going to take for us to sort of come up with ideas and answers to these armies that we're going to look at. Okay, so what is the Eldar Identity? Bullshit. Sorry, didn't say that. So the first thing is obviously speed. Eldar are renowned, one of those words, for being a fast army. Eldar in general, both Dark and Craftworld, are always an army that has faster than average movement speed. So, for example, their basic infantry moves 7, their vehicles move 12 to 14. Stuff has lots of ways to advance and shoot, advance and do things, move after shooting, etc. So you need to understand that an army that's this fast is going to need to be played around much more carefully than a slow army, because an army like ourselves, people know where we are, they know our threat ranges, and they can measure that out. When Eldar comes along and it's got units that can move 14 and then shoot and then do another move of 14 and then in your own turn move another 7, it gets complicated, and you can imagine there's a lot of B word, bull, that can happen from this. But yeah, Eldar in general, very fast. Dice manipulation. So Eldar don't like to play a dice game. They like to just cheat, basically. It's legal cheating. So at the start of the game, we'll go into that in a second, actually. That's their detachment, we'll go into that. But Eldar have the ability to basically make dice be what they need when they want it. And that's extremely powerful, because if you need to hit a shot or you need to hit a charge, but it's going to need a guaranteed 6 to make it, you can just... Every other army has to roll and pray, par-like sisters. Most of our armies have to roll and pray. Eldar just go, nah, sod that. Boop, there's my dice. And we're making that charge, or we're doing maximum damage. So that's an annoying thing you have to go against when you face Eldar. They're not playing the same rules as you. They just get to legally cheat, basically. Eldar are extremely efficient. This sort of, in a way, has become less true because of the point increases that the army has taken. However, they are still extremely efficient in dealing output. Their damage dealing capability is insane. They're often quite known as a glass cannon army. Debatable. But the idea of a glass cannon is it has the firepower of a cannon, but it's made of glass. So if you touch it, it'll shatter, but it's still a cannon shooting at you. So even, a single fire prism getting an angle on something, for example, can usually, with the rerolls it has and its amazing damage, AP and range, can on its own put most other tanks into the graveyard. Whereas a lot of other tanks might need some support to do that. So this extreme efficiency and not relying on so many buffs or overlapping effects as other armies is something that Eldar are very good at. Dev Wound the Codex. So when I was doing my research for this and looking through, I know a lot of it, but it's obviously good to still remind yourself and catch up. They have a lot of dev wounds. For those who don't know, a dev wound is basically if you roll a 6 to wound, your opponent, or the model that's being shot at, can't make any save at all, invulnerable or normal save. It just goes straight through. Now, go back to what I said before about cheater dice and just being able to put a 6 in there and automatically make that happen. You can imagine these guys really don't have a problem punching a hole in your tank, because it's going to do, they're going to automatically make it 6. Your tank's going to get no save at all, and that big guy there at the back, that's something like 2d6 damage. Just nothing at all, just bang clean through. So you can imagine it's quite nasty. And they're also full of gotchas and tricks. A lot of people hate playing against Eldar, myself included. Sorry, Eldar players. Because Eldar, as an army, functionally, to do what Eldar does, and a well-played Eldar army, a perfect Eldar game, for example, is the game where your opponent never gets to do anything. They never get to shoot you back, they never get to charge you, and as you can imagine, this is an extremely miserable game for your opponent. So the better the Eldar player, the more miserable their opponent. And to do this, they have lots of rules that are going to be tricks and gotchas. These are rules that let them move when you come close, or maybe they can move in your phase, or they have ways to, basically punish you by shooting from out of line of sight and then running away. All sorts of things like this. So as an army, they have a lot more access to these than most honourable factions like Death Guard. Very honourable, very honest army. Not going to find that with Eldar. Eldar are full of tricks, teleports, all sorts of things to basically screw your opponent, stop you getting shot, stop them doing their thing, and do whatever you want. So yeah. So let's go through the core rules of Eldar. So Eldar core rules. Their army rule, so this is in the future, if they get new detachments, they will still have this rule no matter what, is Strands of Fate. So what Strands of Fate is it's the 12 magical bullshit dice. You can potentially have more if you take certain characters, and there is ways to gain them throughout the game. But basically, before the game starts, they can roll 12 dice. And whatever results they get, they can at any point in the game, once per phase, basically substitute a dice roll. So you have a d6 plus 2 damage Bright Lance. You've hit a tank, you've wounded it, he's failed his save. You can either roll your d6 plus 2, or instead grab one of those 6s you rolled at the start of the game and just say, yeah, that's going to be 6 plus 2 damage. No roll required, just get to do it. This can be used on pretty much everything. you've been shot by a melter on your big important tank, you can only save it on a 6. Yeah, just put a 6 in there, why not? No roll required. Just put it in, just automatic. As you can imagine, in a game like Warhammer, where dice rolls are very important, and spiking important rolls can massively change a game, these are quite fairly referred to as kind of bullshit. It feels like cheating. You just get to decide what happens where. These have been nerfed since they started. You basically had no cap on how many you could use in a phase. So you could have, you could shoot a unit like a Wraith Knight and then just put 4 6s into its guns. So they're all dev wounds, and you've just dropped something like 8d6 unsavable wounds onto a unit that spills over and kills the entire... It was ridiculous. They have been toned down, thank fuck. Sorry, language. It gets me so angry, Elder. But these dice are going to be very important, because there's going to be moments when you're thinking, okay, if I shoot this tank here, or if I shoot this Yinkan, and I'm going to give him a 6-up save, and he should fail it, and he's going to die, and it's great because that tank's dead. Always remember to look at their fate pool, because if they have a 6 in there, they could always substitute it in. Now, unfortunately, there's nothing you can do about it. If the 6 is there, the 6 is there. And the idea is basically they at least have to use it for the save rather than dealing damage. But they can use it for all sorts of things. Advancing, charging. I don't think use Battle Shock. I probably can, to be fair. But there's many uses for this ability. And they can as well, because you might be thinking, well, I just hope they roll back 12 wands. Every time they roll for Strands of Fate, they can do what's called a mulligan, which is... A mulligan is a generic term, basically where you re-roll them all, but you'll take one out. So you'll get 11 dice instead, but you get to re-roll it. Unfortunately, this mechanic is, as I said, very powerful, and some games I have seen the Eldar player roll and get something like 7 6s, which is just incredibly lucky, but when something like that happens, it's so hard to play against, because they just have so many critical saves, critical wounds, critical damage rolls, and it's not fun for your opponent to basically, who has to roll d6 damage las cannons, and your opponent's basically just rocking flat 8 damage, their bright lances everywhere. But that's Strands of Fate. It is what it is. I think it's a bad mechanic, but hey ho, we got it. It's here to stay. We're going to work with it. The detachment rule is also kind of silly. Every single Eldar unit gets a free reroll to hit and wound. So you know how we talked before about being extremely efficient? This is one of the reasons why. Having a single Bright Lance in a squad is good already. Having a single Bright Lance, a weapon that powerful, and then the weakness normally would be that's a one-shot weapon. It has one shot, and it's quite often that when we use stuff like melter guns, or it has one shot, we quite often will fail either our hit or our wound roll. But you have a reroll not for hit or wound, for both. So this makes Eldar extremely efficient with these high damage, low output, low shot amount weapons. And it really takes out that chance of failure for a lot of their important weaponry. The fact you can just always have in the bank. Imagine every single unit is basically getting 2 command point worth of rerolls per unit in that army. Every turn. And it's every single time they fight. So if you shoot and then melee, you're getting 4 command points worth of reroll. It's bonkers. It's so good. It's one of the most powerful rules. It existed last edition for multiple armies. It's commonly referred to as Master Artisans, because that's what it used to be called. And it was really broken then. It turns out it's still really broken now. So you have Strands of Fate being incredibly powerful, dice manipulation. Now you've got unparalleled foresight to basically take away the chances and reduce them even further of you having a bad roll, because you've got so many free rerolls. It's incredible. So away from that, some more generic traits of the army. They generally have high movement speed. Eldar tend to move higher than your average. So, like I said before, 7-inch infantry, 14 to 12 vehicles. They generally will move faster than most armies in the game. They are, in general, mostly squishy outside of Wraith units, but this can be misleading. They're squishy because they have low toughness or lower saves than armies such as Space Marines, etc. However, we do have to remember what we just said about Strands of Fate. They have psychic abilities that can make them more resilient. So what should be a squishy tank, easy to kill, can suddenly spike that 6 because he just says it does it. And now what you thought was a squishy unit has survived. So you need to understand, when we say squishy, we mean like in general terms squishy, but they do have ways to make units super tough, and their Wraith units that they do have are actually very tough. So look out for that. Mobility tricks. So Eldar have lots of mobility tricks. We'll see in a second when we look at the stratagems. They have a lot there. A lot of their units have the ability to move if the enemy comes close, or to move after shooting. Lots of things like this that are basically going to help them get around the board. They have units that can teleport, warp spiders, Yinkan. We're going to get into them, don't worry. But Eldar are never where they appear. If an Eldar player wants to be on one side of the board and then they start losing, they can quite easily suddenly flip to the other side of the board, which is something not a lot of armies can do. So trying to pin down and trap Eldar becomes very difficult. Okay, so let's go through some stratagems, enhancements. So enhancement-wise, I'm just going to look at these two because I think these are the most important. So we have a character resurrection. So it's a Phoenix gem. You put it on a character. When the character is slain, you roll a dice. On a 2 or more, that character is brought back to life with full wounds remaining. Now, I'm just going to say, one thing you're going to notice is Eldar tend to have a lot of rules other armies have, but better. And it makes me think of that. I don't know if anyone's seen the film Dodgeball with Globo Gym, where it's like, here at Globo Gym, we're better than you, and we know it. And that is how I felt reading this and looking at this entire thing for Eldar. So not only do their character get up on a 2-up, a lot of other abilities are a 3-up, and they also get back up with full health, so full wounds remaining, whereas a lot of others are D3 wounds, etc. Very powerful. They can put it on key characters that they really don't want to risk dying, and it's just going to give them that extra life, which is incredibly good for them. And also remember this. However, do remember, if you do kill it and then it is resurrected, if you had assassination as a card, you still score that assassination card because the character was slain, regardless of whether it is then resurrected. It was initially slain, and it also means if you've took it as a fixed secondary, you can kill them again, which is really cool, and score it again. But yeah, the next enhancement is an auto 6 to hit, wound, or save per turn for the unit the character is in. So this can be used to auto 6 a devastating wound to make it ignore everything, quite common in units of Wraithguard. It can be used to auto 6 a save. Again, crucial saves really matter. It can also be used by a lot of common practice is this is put on a Death Jester who has an ability where he can pick something like dev wounds, sustained hits free. So obviously if you can roll your dice, and this is after the roll, so you can roll your dice and then change one of them to a 6. So you got a Death Jester 3 shots. Every 6 explodes 3 times. Maybe he rolls one naturally, so now he's hit them all. He's rolled 1/6 naturally, so now he's on 6 hits from 3 shots. And you can auto 6 another one, and he's up to 9 hits from 3 shots. It's very powerful. Again, more dice manipulation. Combine that then with Fate dice, who can then automatically make the other 6 a 6. So now you've got 3 6s. You can see how it can get out of hand pretty quickly. So yeah, extremely powerful. Again, auto 6 in saves. If you've also got a 6 in the dice pool, you can double 6 like a melter save a tank completely from taking any damage. It's wild. So beware of that thing. Then their stratagems. So they have a lot of more like rules and stuff, but I've summarized it into what it could be. So 1 CP, auto advance 6 for a unit. So Eldar, again, the speed theme. So rather than rolling a dice, which again they could have just used a fate dice for, but now they don't have to use a fate dice for, they can just pay 1 command point and make that advance automatic 6. So if you're measuring things and you're like, okay, my opponent could only get onto this point if he rolls a 6, so the odds are with me, just understand that you can just pop that and just automatically get that 6 every time. So just be aware. 2 command points. A unit can move after shooting. Now this isn't a move 6 inches. This is a move, which means a tank, which can have like a 12 to 14 inch move, can pop around a corner, shoot at your tank with its anti-tank weapon, and then after it's fired, can pay 2 command points to move away a full 14, 12 inches, whatever it is. As you can imagine, this is very annoying. Any unit can do it, so they can do it with infantry units. It can't be done in Overwatch, just be aware. But mainly, tanks get in a nasty angle, which would normally expose them. They can shoot and then scoot away to safety. Thankfully, this is 2 command points, which does hurt it a little bit as compared to normal, which it might just be a bit overpowered if it was just 1 command point. But don't worry, they got something for that. Another stratagem is 1 command point, fall back, shoot and charge. So again, very hard to pin down Eldar. Don't think just because you've locked them in combat, you're going to stop them, you're going to force them to fall back and then they can't do anything. They're quite capable of falling back, shooting and charging, doing actions, all that. It's very hard to stop Eldar doing what they want to do. It's basically a bloat drone for 1 CP. 1 command point, 6s to wound in shooting become an extra 2 AP. This one sounds really nasty, but I don't actually see it used that much. There's just other stratagems that are better, but where it can be used, very nasty, is in Ynnari. Ynnari is a weird sub-faction for Eldar, where they can basically combine Dark Eldar units with normal Eldar, and there's quite a funny combo someone at my club does, called Benedict, and it's horrible. He brings Scourges from Dark Eldar, which have poison 4+, so anti-infantry 4+ weapons, or 3+ on some of them. And because anti-infantry makes those dice count as 6s when they wound versus infantry, he can bring a lot of splinter cannons, and suddenly now they're all like 3 AP for every 3 up to wound. It's very funny. But in general, in Eldar, normal Eldar, you're mostly probably going to see this on units of like bikes or warp spiders, because they can put out a lot of shots. But it's not the most common used ability stratagem. But again, just be aware that they can spike up to crazy amounts of AP with the right amount of 6s. Another one, again, it's just our stratagem but better. So it's 1 command point, give a unit -1 to be hit, but theirs works in both shooting and melee, whereas ours is only for shooting. So again, annoying. And last but not, so it's a simple stratagem, but it's a powerful stratagem. -1 to hit, we use it plenty. It's very good when we use it, so it's going to be just as good when Eldar use it. And then last but not least, let's talk about Phantasm. Phantasm is probably the single most broken stratagem that has ever been printed. Basically, what it is for 1 command point, at the end of your opponent's movement phase. So in your opponent's turn, so if you're the Death Guard player against Eldar, they will do it at the end of your movement. They can pick one of their units, and it can make a normal move of up to 7 inches. This is so cracked. It's unreal. You've deep struck in to flamethrower some units. At the end of your movement phase, they're 9 inches away. They move 7 away. You can't shoot them anymore. You set up a charge. You rapid ingressed in their turn. Now you've moved 4 inches closer. So your 9-inch charge is now a 5-inch charge. And they've just moved 7 inches away. And we're back to a 12-inch charge. Great. They have a tank that is exposed after shooting itself because it didn't want to spend 2 command points to move and shoot. Well, that's okay, because in my turn, they'll just pay 1 command point and Phantasm it. Now, thankfully, that can't happen anymore. Phantasm did get nerfed. It is infantry only now. So the tank abuse has gone. However, everything else still applies. Wraithguard are massive abusers of it. A big block of 10 Wraithguard with fairly short range weapons can basically stand in the middle of the board within 6 inches of some terrain, and they ask you a question. They say, "Hello, good sir, are you going to try and kill my Wraithguard? If yes, I'm going to pay 1 command point, and I'm going to go 6 inches backwards behind that building, and then you can't shoot me. And all your units you've now exposed to shoot me are now in the open for me. Congratulations, you got baited." Another thing that can happen is the 10 Wraithguard are in the middle of the board, and you say, "Aha, not today, good sir, I'm not getting baited." And then your opponent goes, "Oh, okay, then in that case, I'm going to pay 1 command point, and I'm going to come towards you. So I've basically got an entirely free movement phase, and now in next turn, I'm going to be in range to shoot that big tank there, because you can't move because you've just finished your movement phase. That's it. So many things for this. As you can imagine, you've took a point. You've managed to get 3 OC on for a bloat drone onto an objective. He's got some ranges within 7 inches. He pays 1 command point. Those 5 walk on. You can't overwatch it because it's not the opponent's movement phase. It's your movement phase, so you can't overwatch in your own. The applications of this stratagem are incredible, and the better the player, the more nonsense they're going to pull off with this. It is absolutely the most busted thing ever. The timing of it is ridiculous because you can't Plague Burst Caller and Battle Shock it because it's in movement, which is before shooting, so you never get a chance to not let them do it. All your effects fall off in the command phase, so like if you have minuses to move, they can fall off, so you can't even reduce the movement they're going to get from this. It's ridiculous. It's one of the hardest things to play around. It makes deep strike charges literally impossible. Even rapid ingress charges are basically impossible. It is single-handedly, I 100% mean this in the bottom of my heart, the most bullshit thing you will have to face against Eldar. I hate it. I want it put into 2 command points or just flat out reworking because it's not fun. It's so lame. I hate it. But yeah, it is what it is. Phantasm. Woo! Okay, so what is the list archetype / playstyle for Eldar at the moment? I'm just going to take my jacket off, bear with me a second. So, commonly, they're going to be using a mixture of mobile infantry and minimum-sized units, which are basically going to be playing their secondary game. It's going to be scoring them all the points, scoring all the secondaries. They can take fixed or tactical. The army's that fast, it can easily get where it needs to be. They're usually going to bring a big anchor unit. This used to be stuff like Wraith Knights. They've been nerfed, so now it's Wraith Guard. A big brick of 10 Wraith Guard, which are going to be resurrecting every turn from Spirit Seers. 2 up save. They can do the Phantasm trick, like I said, to either sit on the middle uncontested, they're going to push you, or they're going to keep jumping back behind cover. That unit's basically going to sit in the middle of the board, and that's going to be their anchor. For those who haven't seen previous episodes, an anchor unit is a unit that's extremely tough to kill, that basically, in an army that's relatively squishy, you have this nice tough unit to play around. They have extremely potent characters, so the Yin Khan, the Avatar of Cain, are incredibly powerful big monsters that are really hard to kill. They have Farseers, Lone Operator, Autark Way Leapers, who are going to obviously just do Lone Operator things while giving them command points. Phoenix Lords are incredibly powerful. They basically are supercharged characters with incredible output. I think Morgan Ra, not Morgan Ra. It's the Fire Dragon fella has like a Melter +6 weapon, so it can do something like 12 damage a shot. It's a bit wild. So yeah, expect me to see Eldar characters that they're gonna have a big impact on the game. Mainly the one you're gonna see what's gonna have the most impact is gonna be the Yin Khan. We're gonna go into that one, don't worry. They have lots of dev wounds, so again, it doesn't matter if you're a 2 up save, 4 up invulnerable. Dev wound is dev wound, it's just going to go straight through. So having strong armor and invulns, it still helps, don't get me wrong, but don't think it's going to save you. And this is all mostly going to be coming from indirect as well. They have an indirect unit with devastating wounds with twin linked, so it's going to reroll and fish for them. And anything it hits is going to be debuffed. Again, we'll get into it. As you can see, that's going to be extremely annoying, so you can expect to see 1 to 3 of those indirect pieces per list, and they're basically going to try and abuse how hyper efficient their units are. So they're going to have units that are going to try and either trade up high in value or basically just dominate the game through them existing and basically being a threat at all times. Like I said, as even a Lonely Guardian squad can spike a flat 8 damage Bright Lance into one of your tanks, and they will use the dice that they have and the capacity for rerolls as well to make sure that all of their units are getting the most value out of them at all times. So let's look at some meta units. So I'm just have a quick sip. Fella who likes it when I announce my drinks, this one's for you, bud. We're on a Yazoo today. Righty ho. So Wraith Guard. Quite common, the Anchor unit. You're going to see 10 Wraithguard with Wraith Cannons. So this is a toughness 7, 2 up save, 3 wound infantry unit. So 30 wounds in this unit. With a strength 14, 1 shot, AP 4, D6 damage, devastating wounds weapon. Yes, you read that right. 10 of those in the squad. As you can imagine, anything this kind of points at tends to die very quickly. So, what is so fun about this unit? Obviously, it's very tough to kill. Dev Wounds is incredibly powerful, but even without the Dev Wounds, it's Strength 14, AP 4, and D6 damage. They also have a rule where they can return fire. So if you shoot this unit, now these rules exist in other armies, but bear in mind what I said before about these guys being but better. Normally, the way this rule goes is you will shoot the unit, and then you deal your damage and whatnot, a couple models die, and then they can shoot back at the unit that shot them. Not for Eldar though. These guys, after you've shot them, can shoot anything. It doesn't have to be the thing that shot them. So you could shoot a cultist into this guy and do nothing, and then he just turns around, looks at Mortarion, and the entire 10-man squad shoots Mortarion. It's pretty wild, and it makes this unit extremely hard to approach because there's no real way to sort of stop that happening unless they're in combat. And again, with the phantasm tricks that we said before, it can be incredibly hard to shut this unit down. So this unit is a walking missile. Wherever it goes, anything that's within 18 inches is going to die. And if you try to shoot it to death, you either need to outrange it, or, and again, you can't just outrange it because let's say the gun's at 18-inch range, you've got yourself into 19-inch range, and then at the end of your movement, he phantasms 6 inches towards you, and now he can obviously shoot if you shoot him. You can see how this is becoming a problem. Or he can move towards somewhere else he wants to shoot. So now if you shoot them, he's going to shoot your tank and blow that up. Pain. So yeah, that's 10 Wraithguard. Expect to see this in pretty much every list, and that's competitive at the moment. It's an absolute staple. It's in every list that wins events. So yeah, look forward to that one. And they're usually accompanied by a Spirit Seer. So this gives Wraith units lethal hits and +1 to hit. So again, normally it's like just one of those abilities. This guy's just like, have them both. Why not? And that's on top of him being able to resurrect one model in the command phase every turn. And that's a Wraithguard unit, so that's going to be a lot of dudes. This guy quite often takes Fate's Messenger as well, which allows him to auto-6 a dice from the enhancements before, so you can automatically trigger a dev wound on something. It's pretty gross. This is what annoys me, because you can see it's almost like a combination of Plague Surgeon, Tallyman, and Biologist Putrefier in one character, which I'm pretty sure is like the same cost as one of them. It's insane. And obviously, he's going to be in every single list as Wraithguard, because giving them all of those buffs and being able to resurrect one of these expensive models every turn is incredibly powerful. Expect to see him. Oh boy, Night Spinners and Fire Prisms. So the Night Spinner is a D6 +3 blast, so just like our Plague Burst Crawlers. Indirect weapon with devastating wounds and twin linked. Yes, at 2 damage each. So every 6 this thing rolls to wound, you get no saves at all against. And it has twin linked, so it can re-roll all of its wounds, so it can fish for them. This means it doesn't really have any bad targets, because you shoot infantry, you can just take the normal wounds if they've got a bad save. You shoot a tank, you can just reroll all your hits and try and get dev wounds on the wound roll. Because every 6 is going to automatically just take 2 wounds off something. So as you can imagine, that's already incredibly powerful. On top of this, you're also going to get any enemy hit by this weapon is going to have -2 to its movement characteristic and cannot advance. So normally, it's just like -2 to move, and that's it. Maybe -2 to charge. This is just you can't advance at all, as well as -2 move. So your Terminators, hit by this, are moving 2 inches, nothing more. You can't advance it. You can't do anything about it. You're moving 2 inches. Good game. GG. That unit's doing nothing. There is often 1 to 3 of these in every Eldar list, and they are horrendous, because again, they have no bad targets. Worst case, they fish for dev wounds. Best case, they can just be debuffing whatever they need to, dealing damage and dev wounding stuff to death. They're so gross, man. They're so gross. Fire Prisms. Fire Prisms are their sort of like main battle tank. 2 shots at strength 18. Again, just 18, really high. AP 4, again, just better than you, Las Cannon. And a flat 6 damage, again, just better than you, Las Cannon. It also has a secondary fire, because again, just better than you, which is 2d6 shots with blast at strength 6, AP 1 and 2 damage. Because reasons. This thing has an inbuilt reroll to hit and wound. And this stacks with their detachment ability, which gives it an inbuilt hit and wound reroll. So those 2 strength 18 shots at flat 6 damage has 2 hit rerolls and 2 wound rerolls. It's always hitting, it's always wounding, you're dying, deal with it. That's not it though. You can also, if you use the 2-shot mode of the Fire Prism's weapon, you can actually fire using other Fire Prism's line of sight. So, for example, if you have a wall and a unit behind it, here, and then your opponent has 3 Fire Prisms back over here, and he flies 1 forward to peek around the wall, all of those 2, as long as they can see this Fire Prism, can use that one's line of sight. They basically beam to it, and then that beams for them. So, 1 Fire Prism can fly forward, the other 2 can shoot through it, so all 3 Fire Prisms are getting to shoot, 2 of them from out of line of sight, basically. And then, after they've shot, he can pay 2 command points and move that Fire Prism 14 inches backwards behind cover and hide. Interactive. Very fun. It's it's so bullshit. It's so grim. But it is what it is. Yeah, this episode really annoyed me to record, I won't lie. I hate Eldar so much. But, yeah. These things are extremely, extremely efficient anti-tank. Thank God these things went up in points. They used to be 120 points, which is less than a Predator. For that, GW, again, please explain what went through your head. But thankfully they've gone up to like 165 now, so they're a bit more expensive. Probably still too cheap for what they do. They also have shuriken cannons, etc. as well, but we don't even need to mention the secondary weapons because that alone is wild. Imagine having that in Death Guard, what we would do for that. So we could link our entropy cannons and their terrible 24-inch range. So yeah, some of the best anti-tank in the game. Super reliable because of the inbuilt reroll plus the detachment reroll. It's always hitting, it's always wounding. Using each other's line of sight can be abused really heavily. And again, it can also turn into a marine killing weapon with strength 6, AP 1, 2 damage blast attacks. So yeah, Fire Prisms, they really, really hurt when they connect. Warp Spiders. So these are the MSU infantry mentioned before who are focused on scoring. So these guys have innate deep strike. They have a 12-inch move, or they can move 24 inches. But if you do this, you have to roll a dice, and on a 1, you take a single mortal wound. What's that? Wait, no, you thought... No, it's not a dice per model in the unit, it's just 1 dice. So, maximum of 1 mortal wound and a 1 in 6 chance. These guys move 24 inches. They're never not gonna. They're just gonna do it. Because they can. Even if they don't need to, they're gonna do it. Because they're Eldar, and they're gonna flex on you. So, yeah, a 24-inch move infantry unit. Very powerful. What's even more fun is they have flame weapons, so torrent weapons. So these weapons auto-hit, and they have devastating wounds. So these guys have, D6 shots per guy. The sergeant has 2, so he has 2d6. It's kind of like our Death Shroud, but every 6 they roll to wound, you don't get a single save against, nor invulnerable. So these guys can chip damage off pretty much anything. And if they roll enough 6s, you roll 5 6s, there's 5 unsavable wounds clean through. So as you can imagine, these things are pretty grim. They're mainly going to be jumping around scoring, doing secondary, doing actions. But the thing is, what makes this unit so good is they never have a bad target, because against infantry, etc., you can just shoot and just weight of dice will kill a lot of the infantry. But even against like the biggest, nastiest, toughest vehicles, you can still reliably put something like 3 to 4 mortal wounds on that. And that's from 5 guys. Like, it's definitely a thing. So, yeah, Warp Spiders. These guys are taken mostly in every list. Again, 5-mans, they don't tend to go bigger. they'll be using the 24-inch move to get where they need to be to score those card secondaries or fixed ones, whatever they've taken, getting angles, shooting into units that they're finishing off. They've shot the fire prisms, it's dropped your tank to 2 wounds. These guys are now just going to finish it off with some chip damage from the dev wounds. Incredibly good. Shadow Spectres. These guys fulfill the same role. It's just another way to get more of them. Deep Strike, built-in stealth. These guys can't move 24, but they do have a 12-inch move still, which is very fast. And they have a rule called jump, shoot, jump. Well, it's not called that, but people will refer to it a lot as that. It's the axe that they can move, and then after they've shot, they get to move again. So it's 6 inches the second time, thankfully. But this, again, makes them basically have an 18-inch move, makes them extremely powerful, so they can move out of cover, shoot a unit, and then jump back behind cover and stay safe. They can deep strike in from 9 inches away, shoot a unit, and then move 6. So if you've left like a single character on a point, they can drop down, shoot, kill the character, then move 6 onto the objective and take it off you. They can do that to stuff like Plague Burst Crawlers, because they have an OC of 4. This unit can drop down, shoot the Plague Burst Crawler, regardless of whether they kill it or not. They then move 6 inches onto the objective, and now they hold it with their OC 1 each, so 5 over your 4. They have 2 fire modes as well. Strength 6, AP 2, 3 damage 1 shot, or D6 damage, Strength 4, AP 1, 1 damage. Again, just having the choice, having the ability to choose what you need. You're good against hordes with your D6 shots. You're good against killing Marines or Terminators with that other profile. Eldar, it does everything. And also built-in stealth, so you -1 to be hit from shooting at all times. Yinkan, this freaking thing. Okay, so the Yinkan is the epitome of everything I hate about Eldar. It's a 2-up save, 4-up invulnerable, half all damage monster with D6 plus 3, strength 7, AP 1, D3 damage flamer, and 5 melee attacks at strength 12, AP 4, D6 plus 1 damage. It does have a sweep profile as well for 10 attacks, so do be aware to do that. What makes this thing a pain is every time a unit is destroyed, once per phase anyway, this model can teleport to that unit, and then it's free to do what it wants. So what this means is, if you have, let's say, a Plague Burst Crawler at the back, hidden, and you have some Nurglings next to it, or cultists, or 10 cultists, whatever, the opponent's Night Spinners can shoot your cultists, kill them pretty easily, and then the Yinkan can teleport to those cultists which were right next to your tank, and then it can charge. So this thing can pop up anywhere. What it also means is, if you've got the Yinkan, you've got lots of guns on it, and then you shoot a Plague Burst Mortar at something else first, and you kill it by accident, the Yinkan can just teleport away to safety. There are so many ways for this teleport to screw you up. It's unreal. This guy has the ability to apply pressure at all times. So the opponent comes forward, pops a Rhino, you guys get out, this guy then teleports to where the Rhino died, he can then charge the people that were inside. Not good, not what you want. This guy is kind of a priority to kill if we get a chance, but as you can see, 2-up save, 4-up invul, and half all damage is not an easy profile to kill. I can't remember if he's 10 or 12 wounds. I think he's 10, but he could be 12, which is even harder. And obviously that flamer profile isn't even a joke. It's D3 damage on a flamer at strength 7, AP 1, auto hitting. Yeah, the Yinkan. You need to be aware of this guy at all times, because again, anything that dies he can teleport to, so beware if you've charged into something, you've killed, a unit on a point, suddenly the Yinkan can arrive on that point with its OC, it can arrive to deny charges, all sorts of things, move block, etc. So do be aware the Yinkan is a problem. It's in pretty much every list because, again, it's so impactful to the game state that you're kind of daft if you're not bringing one along. So yeah, the Yinkan, it teleports everywhere. Warwalkers. So Warwalkers aren't super taking every list, but a lot of people do run them. They usually rock 2 Bright Lances, again to make use of that capacity to make low amount but high quality shots really good with their inbuilt rerolls. Their toughness 7, 6 wounds, 3-up save and a 4-up invuln, with a -1 to wound, And no, it's not like Death Shroud where it's -1 to wound if your strength's higher. It's just always -1 to wound because, again, they're better than us and they know it. These things also get to scout 9 inches, so that means they can get some really nasty angles with those Bright Lances. You might think you're safe in your deployment, but if you deploy against Warwalkers, always measure 9 inches from those Warwalkers, see where they can actually get to, see the angle that they can take, and understand that if those Warwalkers want to be there, they can be there. So do bear in mind that you don't want to leave yourself vulnerable. Again, these aren't in every list, but the ones that are there, they're deceptively tough, because again, 3 up save, 4 up invulnerable, -1 to wound. They can obviously then pop the stratagem to give them -1 to be hit. So now you've got a -1 to hit, -1 to wound, toughness 7, 3 up save, 4 up invulnerable vehicle. Quite annoying to deal with, especially with those Bright Lances. Their ability to just run around and pop something really expensive. It's not something you want to mess with. And the last two we're going to look at is the Archetype Wayleaper. So this is a lone up character with Deep Strike. He gives them a free command point automatically if he's on the battlefield. Again, Tallyman has to roll for it. This guy, they just get it regardless because, again, they're better than you and we know it. He has the ability to get devastating wounds on his melee, which is not negligible. It's not the most powerful melee. It's only like strength 5 or 6, AP 2 damage, but being able to get dev wounds on that is obviously quite nice because, again, dev wounds is dev wounds and dev wounds is good. This guy can just be used to hold his home objective. Lone up prevents him getting killed by stuff like mortars. He's mainly there to just give out 5 extra command points because he's not going to die because he's lone up. He's going to be on the battlefield, so he's going to get you 5 command points. It's take a character, get a lone up, and 5 command points. Why wouldn't you? He's going to hold home. He's going to screen out like corners of the board. He's going to do actions. He's going to bring you 5 command points. And if you need him in a pinch, you can go and melee some weaker units to death. Expect one in every list. If I could pay like 80 points for 5 command points, I'd probably do it as well. It's probably not even 80 points. Farseer. So the Farseer can give a friendly unit within 12 -1 to wound. Again, we talked before about how their tankiness can be misleading. This is one of the reasons why being able to give a unit -1 to wound is often usually better than being able to give out 4 up in bones, etc. Because every save you don't have to take is a save you can't fail. He can also flip fate dice to being 6s. So if you have fate dice and you rolled a 1 and you use it on a unit nearby a Farseer, he can change that to an automatic 6. So you can spend a fate dice that has a 1 and make it treat it as if it's a 6. So again, think about all the uses for that. Saves, dev wounds, damage, hits, movement, etc. He also has a cute little D6 damage, strength 6, AP 2, D3 damage shooting. Nothing to be ignored, can do some damage. But mainly this guy is going to be, he's usually taken solo, hides out somewhere, gives out -1 to wound to the Wraith units while giving 3 6s to stuff like the Night Spinners to chip those 2 models wounds through at a time. But do expect to see him quite a lot because -1 to be wounded is a very powerful defensive ability. So these are some lists that have won events recently. So we've got Jesper Unanda Sharin from the Malmo Wargaming Weekend. He had Fugan, which is that Phoenix Lord with that extremely powerful melter weapon. The Yinkan for be teleporting everywhere. The Archetype Wayleaper, 5 command points for free. Farseer, the -1 to wound, and auto 6 in dice. And a Spirit Seer to go with, guess what? Then we have 5 Rangers, so these are infiltrating units. They're just going to go forward, they're going to score, they get the free move if you come near them, so they're going to move away if you try to charge them. 3 × 5 Shadow Spectres. Again, teleports, actions, moves 6 inches after shooting, really good. 5 Swooping Hawks, same exact thing. They get to move if you come near them. They get to shoot and move. They get to do all, I think their move if you come near, but regardless, again, it's a cheap teleporting unit that's going to do actions. It's not really there to do damage, but it does exist. 5 Warp Spiders, exact same reasoning. 10 Wraithguard, there's the anchor, the brick that we said, going to sit in the middle, bully everything. Go near it, you die. You shoot it, you die. And then 2 Night Spinners, debuffing the opponent, indirect dev wounds, grim. You can already see how this list is going to be playing. The Yin Khan's going to cause problems for everyone teleporting around. The Night Spinners can kill units to enable the Yin Khan. They can also just debuff other units, stop them getting around. The Shadow Spectres, Swooping Hawks, and Warp Spiders are there to score every secondary under the Sunfear. And their Wraithguard are going to sit in the middle of the board and ask your opponent, what are you going to do about me? It kind of writes itself, and you can imagine how it goes playing against this, but it's grim. It's grim. Another one, Alex Petford. So this is recently from Hellstorm's Major, the Super All-Stars. So again, Fugan, Yin Khan, all the usual characters, Wayleaper, Farseer, Spiritseer. Now this guy's also brought a Troop Master, which is quite interesting, so it's a Harlequin character. I'm not too sure on the tech reason for this, but cute to see. He's brought a Starweaver, which is a 5-man Harlequin transport, which again, the 5 Harlequin troops plus the Troop Master, I'm going to assume is going to go in. Double Night Spinner again, a staple. 5 Shadow Spectres, 2x5 Warp Spiders. Again, these are all just doing the cute little action, these whatever they need to do. And then the 10 Wraithguard Brick. So small changes, but basically the same idea of list. You can kind of already see how it kind of functions. All the little 5-mans are going to be looking at scoring your secondaries, being annoying to lock down and annoying to deal with. Your Wraithguard Brick's going to march up the middle of the board. Your Yin Khan's going to be punishing, misplays, teleporting everywhere it needs to be, meleeing stuff to death. You can imagine why we would need to try and kill the Yin Khan. If the Yin Khan dies, a lot of the pressure of us comes off, and we can start to breathe a sigh of relief. But yeah, they're fairly similar, these lists. The only real change being the bit of the Harlequin touch in the second one. Not too sure on why he took the Harlequins. I know they're cheap-ish. Starweaver's nice fast transport for them before being vulnerable. They can get back into a transport, I believe, after consolidating from combat. So you can fly up, jump out, charge something, kill it, get back into safety. Maybe it was some plays like that. But yeah, these are 2 lists that have won events. These aren't runners-up or anything. These have fully won events. And you can see it's not much. When you look at it, it doesn't look like much because they are expensive. But my god, does it have impact on the table. So let's start to look at some weaknesses. As you can see then, low model count. They don't have many models. Games Workshop thankfully made Eldar expensive recently. And they should be. Their rules are ridiculous. But it has meant that they have very elite armies. Very low amount of models, but massively impactful in every single one of them. They tend to have a lower toughness average, so getting wound rolls onto them is usually easier than your average army. You should be able to make them take more saves. They don't like indirect. As you can imagine, those little 5-mans there, if they start them on the board, our PBCs are going to be able to pick them up quite easily. So only 5, toughness 3, 1 wound infantry. You can kill that, 100%. So indirect fire forces them to either keep those units off the board till Plagueburst Crawls are dead, or they have to take them on the board for their secondaries and risk losing 1 to 2 units of them a turn. And as you can see, they don't have that many units to play with. So losing 2 units of those a turn is not something they can realistically do. So indirect fire is very powerful. Eldar can also be quite unforgiving. Now, they're forgiving in the sense that you can automatically 6 a dice when you need it. But as you can see with any low model count army, especially one that isn't particularly tough, these guys aren't custodies, misplays and being punished can really bite you in the ass. The Yin Khan, for example, if the Yin Khan dies, a lot of your list's ability to make pressure is gone. So making that mistake and losing him can really switch up the tempo of the game. However, if you don't lose him, you can have an extremely easy game. But those mistakes, when punished, will cost you heavily as Eldar. And another one, they don't take troops. And because they have a low amount of models, their ability to actually hold objectives, primary, is actually pretty piss poor. It's quite easy for you to bully them off objectives. Even if they move away, even if they don't get charges, it's quite easy to out-OC them objectives. And that's going to be one of the key things we're going to look at in how to beat Eldar. So, to the Death Guard side, which Contagion? Do you really need the -1 save? One interesting thing about Contagions here is you're not really going to get to use it. If you get within range of a key unit, if you don't use Hellbrutes, that is, Hellbrutes will help you here. If you get within range of a key unit like Wraithguard, they're going to Phantasm away, which will probably take them out of Contagion range. So -1 save isn't going to be doing much for you. So, is it going to be that useful? Debate that. Obviously, when you do pull it off, it's very powerful. If a Hellbrute can tag something and get -1 save, that's going to help. But in general, we don't really need -1 save to kill Eldar. So, can you hold firing angles? Does your deployment and your terrain layout allow you to get into points where you can put Contagion range onto those firing angles, which means if your opponent wants to drive up with their tank and get an angle to shoot you, or, one of the units like Deep Striking, can you get a Contagion over that area? Because if so, that means you can freely keep certain areas, certain firing lanes of the board within range of -1 weapon skill and ballistic skill. Now, -1 weapon skill and ballistic skill is great, but Fate Dice and all the rerolls Eldar have kind of negate it. So it's not going to be as impactful as it would be against other armies. However, I still think it's probably the right choice in most games. The problem is trying to apply the Contagion versus Eldar. Aggressively, they can react to it with Phantasm. Defensively, if you force them to take angles that force them to come into range, you hide behind walls, etc., you deny deep striking areas, there's actually a good chance that you might catch them on the offensive with your -1 weapon skill, -1 ballistic skill. Especially on the Yinkan, who might teleport into your backlines. Him hitting on 3s instead of 2s can actually make the difference. Because the last point I've got here is increasing the odds of mistakes. This is an army that can't make a mistake. If it does, it will die. So if the Yinkan comes into your backline, charges a Plague Burst Crawler, and then because you've got -1 weapon skill, it actually fluffs two of its hit rolls, and it re-rolls one and it doesn't make it either. Now, you're in a position, actually, where you are one invuln away from average surviving. And if you manage to do that, then that Yinkan is there, stuck there, and your PBC is alive. And if you then manage to trade that PBC and make that punishment, you've just gained a lot of momentum, because you can heal your Plague Burst Crawler up 3 wounds, kill the Yinkan, that's all the pressure gone. The fact of the matter is that killing Eldar when you get onto it isn't really an issue, so -1 save is not really the biggest problem. The problem is Eldar kill you very well. But because they're using this low quantity, high quality firing, being able to give them the chance to make a mistake, not even a mistake because it's not on them, but the chance for something to go wrong is how you win the game. You have to capitalize on stuff when it doesn't go their way. And increasing the odds of that are going to make that instance happen more often, and that's where we punish them. So personally, for me, I would take -1 weapon skill, -1 ballistic skill. However, if you think that the others will do better for you, feel free. Just remember what I said about trying to keep them in Contagion range. It's quite hard. So what's the game plan approach? So we actually need to understand who's the aggressor. So you might be thinking, right, I have the PBCs, I have the indirect, I have more than them, my guys are tougher, they're in rhinos, I can, sit back and just score. Correct and also wrong. Speaking to fellas like Pierce, who just won a GT, very well done, Pierce, well done, mate, 5-0 with Death Guard, hell yeah. We actually came to the conclusion we have to be the aggressor. Because Eldar are going to kill us. They're too fast, they're too mobile, and their output is too high. You will die. So, what we need to do is we need to try and win the game early. So, what we're going to try and do actually is we're going to abuse units like 5-man Plague Marine squads to hold their primary to 0, or at 5, because they got the home one, for at least the first 3 turns. Well, turn 3, 4. 2, 3, and 4. Because if we manage to do that, the idea is that we will die, but if we die slowly enough, if we manage to drag it out as long as possible and keep denying them any primary score, it might come to turn 5 when we're basically dead, but they can't catch us up in score. And that's one thing we need to try and do. We need to use our indirect to punish their MSU scoring squads, Don't shoot the Wraith Guard. There's no goddamn point. It's going to resurrect a guy. You're going to maybe kill one if you're lucky, and then it'll get resurrected. You've done nothing. Shoot the MSU units. Shoot the Warp Spiders. Shoot the Shadow Spectres. Shoot anything that's a weak little infantry unit. Kill them, because once they're gone, that is one less unit for the Eldar to play with. Don't try and kill the Night Spinners because it's just not efficient. If there's nothing else on the board to shoot, you can shoot a Night Spinner, because again, Wraith Guard is so pointless. But they might also have like a lone Farseer. Kill that. Because if the Farseer is dead, they don't get automatic 6s. Again, increases the odds that they're going to have a bad turn of dice. And that's what we can punish. So we want to try and get rid of these little scoring units, because once they're dead, they have to start using units like the Wraith Guard, the Yinkan, to score secondaries. And when they're scoring secondaries, they're not going to be killing anything because they can't shoot, charge, etc. whilst doing actions. So every chance you get to reduce the amount of units they have to play with, it's actually going to increase the odds that their damage output's going to go down, because they're going to have to use those damage dealing units to do the scoring. Okay? We need to watch the Yinkan. The Yinkan is the biggest threat, and it's also the biggest problem. It's the pain in the ass. If we can manage to kill that Yinkan, we get one big turn onto that Yinkan, we can really, really change the tempo of the game, and then we can start to run away with it. Honestly, that's how I feel. We need to also watch Phantasm, because Phantasm is a pain. Don't go for those 9-inch flamers shots. If you do, try and make sure you can drop within flaming range of 2 units, so your opponent can only Phantasm 1, you can pick up the other. Or if they've gone for a deep strike in a corner for something like investigate signals, that's a good time to deep strike flamer, because they can't run further into the corner. You'll still be in range, but they can't go left or right, because it's actually going to bring them towards you. So trapping people against walls is also a very good use. But always remember what Phantasm can do. Keep it in your head. Constantly think about where stuff's positioned. Add 6 inches to where everything is. 6-inch bubble around every enemy unit. That's actually where they are. Remember that. Mortal wounds. This army, because it's 1 wound, lots of 1 wound infantry in 5-man squads, and it has no protection against it, and they're all very expensive, they really hate mortal wounds. If you can bring mortal wounds to bear on this army, you can pick up so many points worth of models rapidly. So mortal wounds are going to be a great key to getting victory in this matchup. Thinking Typhus, think grenades, Chaos Lords, Tank Shock, anything like that. You don't get to spike a 6-up save or half damage or anything like that against a mortal wound. So we need to bring mortals. Transports are also going to really help us. We don't want to be getting shot by Night Spinners. So having transports to keep our guys safe inside makes them much harder to deal with. 2 Night Spinners on average doesn't kill a Rhino, roughly. And those Rhinos can potentially heal up to 4 wounds a turn. Again, we'll get into it. But just stopping them, being able to freely pick up our units. 10 Cultists will die instantly to Night Spinners. But Rhinos plus Plague Marines inside, again, it's also going to help us project that threat onto their primary and threaten them. And that's what we're going to need to do in order to keep their score low enough that we can run away with the lead. So here's some tricks that we can employ. So to dominate the primary, we need to understand Eldar lack heavy OC. They just don't have it. They're not running Guardians. They're not running anything like that. So they're going to really struggle to hold OC. We need to slowly feed bodies to deny score. Plague Marines in 5-mans and Rhinos are the best for this. If you have a Rhino with 2 5-mans in it, you can basically, for 2 turns, disembark, move, so that's 8 inches movement there, and then you can advance even onto a point to take it off them. Now here's the thing. If you have a 7-inch charge, which will get you onto the point and in combat with the Eldar, that one on it, or you can advance like 3 inches and just get on the point, advance. Always take the advance, because the problem is, if you go for the charge, they can Phantasm. And now you're stuck in the open, you're not on the objective, and you can't make the charge. Just take the advance. Always go with rolls and interactions you can guarantee happen. The opponent has a say in whether charges can happen, but they don't have a say in whether you can advance. Obviously, if you've been hit by the Night Spinner, you can't. But again, if you're inside the transport, you can't get hit by the Night Spinner, so you can get out, move, advance. Get onto the point. Doesn't matter what happens then. You can die. All that matters is that for that turn, that Eldar player is not holding that primary. Rinse and repeat the next turn, and then one more turn, and you can hold them to 15 primary. And that's all you need. That's a big enough difference, because their last turn, maybe they get up to 25. But if you've got 40, that's 15 points they've got to find somewhere. You can do it, but you've got to do it early, and you've got to make sure you do it in the way that gives your opponent as little ability to deny it as possible. Don't send out more than you need. Don't send out both 5-mans. 1 5-man is enough. 10 OC there will take objectives off pretty much every Eldar unit, unless they've put everything on it. And if they put everything on it, if they put more than 2 units on it, you can risk the charge because they can only Phantasm 1. So do bear in mind of that. And if it's Rangers, be careful of Rangers because they can move if you get close. So again, think in your head, how much can my opponent impact what's about to happen? If the answer is not much, take the charge. If it's, oh, he could Phantasm, oh, he could move away, and then I'll be stood in the open, just take the advance, get onto the point, deny them primary. They then also have to dedicate firepower to kill that unit, which stops them shooting elsewhere and, killing the next Rhino and the next 5-man to come in. Because if they don't kill it, you'll then score the primary. So it's going to keep them on the back foot. And that's one important way to try and beat Eldar, is to beat them on primary. You want to die, but we need to die slowly enough that we hold them. You'll be tabled turn 5 maybe. Doesn't matter if the score's looking 86 to 54. You can do it. The Wraithguard brick. So, a few things to remember about the Wraithguard brick. They're ballistic skill 4 base, which means with Contagion, we can actually bring them down to ballistic skill 5. Then we can pop stealth to get them down to 6s. Now the Spirits will give them +1 to hit back to 5s, but still, that's a lot better than being hit on 3s. If you ever get a chance in combat with a character, Heroic Challenge the Spirits killing that guy will prevent them lethal hits, prevent them getting a +1 to hit, and prevent them resurrecting every turn. So that's incredibly important. Now remember, this unit can't return fire unless you've made a shooting attack. So Typhus Mortals, grenades for example, aren't going to trigger that fire back. So you can actually, potentially, grenade and Typhus two models to death before you even start shooting at them. But honestly, my biggest advice for dealing with a Wraithguard brick is don't. It's not worth the investment. You can't kill this brick unless you put everything into it. And that's only if the Eldar player lets you. The worst thing you can do is if you manage to basically get onto the brick, fail to kill it, it falls back, and then you lose everything for it. Don't fall for it. If you can ignore them, ignore them. Your opponent might be too scared to actually realise you're ignoring them, and you never move them forward enough to make impact. Just make sure you have something to keep him humble, to sort of say, oh, if I wanted to, I could charge you with these 10 Plague Marines with Biologist Putrefire, and he won't come forward. But if he does come forward, don't take the bait. Sometimes it's better to play around it. Now, if he really overexposes it, go for it. But just always remember, we can't take risks because we have to die nice and slow. And if we go and punish that and we fail it, we will die because Eldar output is that disgusting. So just remember that. Tricks against Phantasm. So remember, a model can only move up to 7 inches as a normal move. It is not a 7-inch move. So if you somehow manage to reduce their movement to like 4, they can only move 4 with Phantasm. So remember this. It's not a free 7-inch move. Going for 2-pronged assaults. So, going to charge them from the front, deep striking something behind. This can help because it means they have to pick the poison. They can't Phantasm one way or the other because they'll get close to another unit. This is quite nice if you manage to catch them in a position where you can have one unit to the left, one unit to the right, one behind, one in front, whatever it is. You can put them in an awkward position where they have to basically pick the best of the worst situation. That's quite nice. Another thing you can do is you can actually, if you manage to pull it off, you can move block Phantasm. It's a normal move. If you manage to if there's a block of Wraithguard and your troops are here, you want to get here to charge them, if you bring in something this side of them, they physically can't move through them. It's still got to apply by the rules of the game. So you can physically surround them and stop Phantasm happening. So if you ever manage to do that, not only does it look really cool because it looks like you've trapped them and you're out to kill them, but there's nothing they can do to stop you from doing that. So do bear in mind, move block is still a valid thing to use against Phantasm. And obviously, the easiest way to deal with Phantasm, lots of pre-measuring. Just assume every unit is 7, up to 7, 6, whatever it is. inches from where it actually is. Understand, can this unit be here? Yes, okay. So I need to be aware that's something that can happen. Can this unit be away from me 7 inches? I've measured my gun's range. Just add 7 inches, or well, take 7 inches off your range, because that's probably what it's going to be. By using pre-measuring, we can actually predict Phantasm and understand our opponent's options and what they can choose to do. And in doing that, it'll help inform you of the correct decision. So a couple tech choices. So we touched on it before. 6 5-man squads of Plague Marines. These are great because they're easily going to out-OC Eldar on primary. Because again, 10 OC for 5 guys. Eldar vehicles like OC free. So they need to put 4 vehicles on a point. Or, at least 2 5-man squads on a point. But again, if the squads are on the table, it means they can be Plague Burst Crawlered. So again, you can see the Plague Burst Crawlers helping the Plague Marines to deny them their primary, so it's fantastic. MSU squads are really good at punishing Eldar output. If 10 Wraithguard catch 10 Plague Marines out in the open, 10 Plague Marines are going to die. If 10 Wraithguard catch 5 Marines in the open, 5 Marines are going to die. So by having smaller squads, we make the most of our cheap costs against their expensive units. So do understand, against Eldar, we kind of want to go the MSU route. Grenades. Grenades are crazy good. Having access to grenades versus Eldar is incredibly powerful. Not only does the Yin Khan hate grenades because he has half damage but no feel, no pain. So grenades dealing mortals go straight through all of his defenses. 5-man, 1 wound infantry squads hate grenades because on average you kill half the squad just from a single grenade use. If you have a biological putrefier nearby and you double grenade strat someone, that unit's probably dead. Fantastic use. So you can pick up 120 point 5-man squads with a single use of grenades. It's so good. So mortal wounds against elite armies are fantastic, especially elite armies that don't have mortal wound protection. The Chaos Rhino with the Russian doll strategy, so this is having, don't attach your characters potentially even, just have as many units as you can, so once they pop it open, now they've got to deal with 2 squads of 5 Plague Marines and 2 characters. One of them's got the Super Flamer because it's a Foul Blight spawn. One of them's going to be chucking grenades for free. Then the Plague Marine's going to chuck grenades for free. Oh my god, they're everywhere. By doing this, by being against a low unit count army like Eldar, it's hard for them to be able to kill all of your units. You basically pop it and then 4 units run out. And it's going to be really hard for them to stop every single one of them doing what it needs to, especially if it takes multiple units to crack the Rhino in the first place. So not only does it do that, it also provides you launch points to deny primary. Again, get the Rhino in a nice position, mid-board terrain, disembark 3, move 5, advance up to D6 or do charges. It's going to be really good for helping you get onto those opposing primary points and denying them their score. And it obviously, it's going to protect Plague Marines from indirect and stuff like Shadow Spectres who are going to want to drop in, use those Strength 6, AP2 flat 3 damage shots to kill Plague Marines. Doesn't matter if you're inside a Rhino. Sit in there, chill, be happy, have a good time, and then when you need it, jump out and make impact on the game. By OP. So, again, this guy's amazing. He's so fucking good. Not only can he go Skolo to help score in this matchup, he has an assault weapon, which means if you do what we said a second ago with the advancing Plague Marines, if you've took a fixed secondary like Cleanse and Teleport Homers, you can get out the Rhino, move, advance, take the Eldar off the primary, chuck a fucking grenade as well if you wanted to, because you're eligible to shoot because you've got assault, and then because you still haven't shot, you're still eligible to shoot after the grenade, then do Cleanse. So you not only took your opponent off the primary, you're now cleansing on their primary, and you've just threw a grenade at whatever 5-man was holding it. Like, Biology Preach, I'm literally, like right now, I'm painting up 2 more to go with my one I already have, because I'm running 3 at the moment. They're that good. Guess what else they're really good at? Killing the Yin Khan. Yin Khan hates mortal wounds. Do you know what it would really hate? If you manage to get a point where you can throw 3 grenades at it, because that's average 9. And then, what's that next thing we have? Oh, look, it's Typhus. Typhus can go into Deep Strike on its own. And Typhus is a Yin Khan emergency deletion tool. He's going to drop in, and all you need him to do is D6 mortal wounds to the Yin Khan. Combine that with a couple of grenade uses, and you can literally one-turn the Yin Khan. And a lot of Eldar players aren't expecting this because the Yin Khan is normally extremely hard to kill. And remember, because the Yinkan is a monster, it can't phantasm. So if you catch this guy out, make sure it's the first thing you do, because the last thing you want to do is Plague Burst Crawl or something, it dies, and then the Yinkan teleports away. Set it up, multiple biology putrefiers, so 2 bio putrefiers, 1 squad of Plague Marines. That's average 9 mortal wounds. Typhus averages 3. Dead. Before a single gun has been shot. Dead. So good. So good. Sorry, I get excited at that. Typhus is also great at killing anything lone up, so the Phoenix Lords that have lone up, Death Jester with lone up, Autarch Wayleaper, really good. Again, though, always remember this guy is here for the Yinkan, 100%. But even outside of the Yinkan, dropping D6 mortal wounds on these really expensive 1 wound infantry units is going to really hurt. Again, it's just super efficient into them. They have no defense. You just go, oh, hello, 5 warp spiders. Oh, I rolled a 6, you're all dead. Cool, I just picked up a 115 point unit for free. Typhus has already made his points back before doing anything else. And bear in mind, you can do all of that while still doing an action. So good. Plague Burst Crawlers. Oh, did I have to keep the Typhus picture? Oh, I was meant to be a Plague Burst Crawler. Again, it forces his MSU infantry to start off the board, which means he's going to have 1 turn of not scoring secondaries as easily. It's good for us. It's great for us. It means when they drop in, they're not going to get to like be shooting. They're going to instantly have to be dropping in where they're going to do secondaries, and it also means we can screen them out. Very good. If they started on the board, 24-inch move warp spiders are very hard to stop doing what they want, but having them off the board means they can't do that, so it's very nice. Also great for punishing characters like the Solo Farseer. A lot of lists are running. Normally just hides in the L and gives -1 to wound to something. You're okay. Let it live if you're playing tactical. As soon as you draw Assassination, drop 3 Plague Burst Crawls on it. Get it out of here. Get your 5 victory points. Again, it's fantastic for shooting MSU infantry. 3 Plague Burst Crawlers, even without Morty. Those 3 should pick up 5 toughness 3 Eldar 1 wound models. And also, Indirect is going to help you avoid overexposing yourself to stuff like Fire Prisms, getting picked up by a random Wraithguard unit, and then the Yinkan appearing. It just keeps them nice and safe. You can survive Night Spinner harass because you can heal up every turn, but one thing you're not going to survive is being shot by like a Fire Prism. And last but not least, Morty. Now, Morty has copped sort of a nerf, sort of not a nerf. It depends where you're playing. We'll talk about it. Got a video coming up. Don't worry about it. But he obviously lets us ignore the movement penalty from the Night Spinner. Now, you still can't advance, because that's not a movement modifier. That's just a flat out, you can't. But he's also a decent deterrent for the Yinkan. Yinkan is not going to want to teleport into your backlines when Mortarian's there, because Mortarian did ignore the half damage, but he's still quite a nasty monster. He does have grenades. Again, some places he might still ignore the half damage. We'll have to see. But he's also going to allow you to ignore a lot of the -1 to hit and wound that Eldar do run around with. So that's quite nice. You make your Plague Burst Crawlers definitely pick up those MSU infantry. Make stuff like War Walkers, you can ignore the -1 to wound. You can ignore the Farseers -1 to wound, so that's really powerful. So yeah, it's still okay choice. I don't really like Mortarian anymore, but there's worse things you could bring. So some key stratagems. Grenades, please use grenades. Grenades into this army are so fucking good. The Yinkan dies. The elite infantry dies. It's so good. Bring biology putrefiers, spam grenades, cheese it up. Mortal wounds for days, baby. Gift to decay. Rhinos heal 1 wound naturally. Remember that. So actually healing 4 wounds worth on a rhino every turn, if you need it, can really help keeping your rhinos alive. And rhinos alive means activation burn. So activation burn means how many units have to shoot a unit to kill it. So if a Night Spinner can shoot and kill a rhino next turn because they've wounded it, on average, it can kill it on its own. It means the next Night Spinner is going to go into your infantry that are inside. But if you heal up 4 wounds, then maybe it's going to take both Night Spinners to crack the rhino, which then gives you another turn of keeping your infantry fully safe and fully undebuffed from those Night Spinners. So Gift to Decay can come in clutch. Also in the Plague Burst Crawler versus Night Spinner war, if they're trying to focus on Plague Burst Crawler, just make it extremely inefficient. They might even just give up shooting it. And the command reroll actually is key in this game. You really need to understand what matters when you use the command reroll. Because again, Eldar are punished on their mistakes or when dice don't go in their favour, which means if you have a way to punish the Eldar, again, this could be an advanced roll onto primary. If you have a way to hold them to 0 primary for a turn, and you need to advance a 3 and you rolled a 1, that's the command reroll to make that turn. Not to do damage, not to do anything else, but to keep their score at 0. That is the core thing to reroll. And this is what we need to understand. That's what matters. Key saves, again, if he's only got a Bright Lance and it's going into your tank from a War Walker, it's got 2 shots, you failed the first one, you failed the second, there's a good chance it's going to explode and die, which means the Yinkan's going to pop up. Really think about, okay, but if I make this 5-up invulnerable, it lives, and that means no Yinkan in my backline, my Plague Burst Crawler's still alive. These are really important things to think about. So, again, consider when to use the command reroll, because it can come in clutch, and it can come in very, 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 I can't remember the word I'm looking for, nice. Nice when you need it. Target priority. So, infantry is the target priority. Indirect, kill that infantry. Once that infantry is gone, we can start to worry less about the opponent's score. It's all about punishing the score here. That's all we want to do. The Yinkan is the next target. If the Yinkan exposes himself for a second, if he kills a unit of Nurglings and teleports in thinking he's clever, and you can set up triple grenade, typhus, do it. Just kill it. Get him gone. Bang. As soon as the Yinkan is gone, Eldar's pressure is off. Not fully, but a lot of it is gone. You can breathe a sigh of relief. I'm just like, oh, okay, right. He's gone. Right. Now we can play the game. So again, if you get a chance to kill the Yinkan, especially with mortal wounds, take it. 100% take it. Kill that thing. Wraithguard, not worth the effort. Honestly, don't bother. Just ignore him. Play around that unit as much as you can. You don't want to get into a tussle with Wraithguard, because it's going to end bad. And it's not going to be worth it. You're going to lose too many resources, and if you fail to kill it, it's just going to start resurrecting models. So again, don't try and not worry about the Wraithguard too much. I know it's mega scary, I know it's horrendous, but sometimes, again, just look at, on the mid board, just have a melee threat that could potentially deal a lot of damage to them, and just remind your opponent that you could do that. Oh yeah, if you sit in the middle, I'm going to charge you. So he won't put it onto the middle. And that's kind of what you need to be looking at. It's just mind games with those things. The Farseer. Again, if you get a chance to kill it with an indirect, just kill it. Get it gone. Nice and easy kill. It's gone there. Especially if you're playing fixed, just kill it. It's gone. Don't have to worry about it. If you're playing tactical, you might want to wait off to see if you pull Assassination, because it's kind of a free kill. But if you're worried about the -1 to wound effect, feel free to just kill it straight off the bat. And when you come to target priority, don't be baited into charges. Don't think, oh, I've got a charge here now, and that's my Aiden just told me I need to kill the infantry if I get a chance, or the Yinkan. Not the Yinkan can't Phantasm, but like the infantry. And if I charge out here, I can kill this infantry. Just remember, Phantasm exists. And the last thing you want to do is be put in a position where you now can't charge. You've got 5 Plague Marines in the open with nothing else to save them, and they're going to die for free. That is exactly what you don't want to happen, so don't get baited into those charges. And last but not least, the Phoenix Gem. If they've got the Phoenix Gem, make sure to ask which character it's on. We don't want to be shooting that thing and wasting our target priority into something that's just going to get up on full wounds again. Especially when it's on the Wayleaper. The Wayleaper's annoying. Yeah, it's lown up. Yeah, it gets some command points. But outside of that, he's not doing huge amounts of impact. So don't go out of your way to kill it, especially if it's got the Phoenix Gem. It's just not worth it. Again, that's kind of like a nice to kill, not needed to kill. Focus on the other things we said first. The squads of infantry, the Yinkan. And then maybe go for him once everything else is dead. But yeah, to summarise this up. So I hope this can be useful to you guys. Basically, you want to play to deny and bully the scoring of the Eldar player. You don't want to be there. You're not trying to win a kill off against Eldar because they're going to outkill you. We need to think about what Eldar aren't good at, and that is holding primary. And play to deny primary while having a nice secondary backup ourselves. So teleport homers, cleanse, stuff like that. That's quite easy to score, quite reliable. And then focus on killing their scoring units and denying their primary. Don't take unnecessary risks. We need as many cards to fall in our favour as possible. This isn't an easy matchup, it's a horrible one. So we can't take those risks. Don't go for a 12-inch charge. If it's 6 inches away and it phantasms to 13, great, you failed it. The end. Just don't risk it. Again, don't think, oh, but if this one save goes through, it'll kill it, because he'll fate dice it. Play it to the odds are in your favour as much as possible. Remove the scoring elements. Again, as we've said many times, that is the weakness. We want to be focusing them down, getting rid of those models, those units, so we can reduce their ability to score, start having to use their brick units, their powerful damage dealers, to do the scoring. And when they're doing that, they're not shooting, so we're happy. Score quickly, die slowly. Deny their score as much as possible. Die as slowly as possible. Invest the minimum required amount of effort to get the desired result. Don't overcommit. This is not a matchup we need to overcommit into. 5 Plague Marines on point will take most objectives off the Eldar. If it doesn't, you can consider maybe putting a bit more in. But again, don't overextend it. Don't give out too much free units at once. It needs to be slow death, but score quick. Focus on secondaries, focus on scoring, keep theirs as low as possible, and die nice and slow. And avoid big expensive units. Eldar can just kill what they want. It's a fact. So big expensive bricks like 10 Blightlord Terminators are not going to survive Eldar. It doesn't matter how tough they are. If that goes on the middle point, 10 Wraithguard are going to pick up half the squad, and the rest will die to like dev wounds from like Warp Spiders and Night Spinners. Don't take big units. Morty's about the best big unit you could take, and even him I probably wouldn't recommend, but it's mainly because he's letting you ignore movement modifiers, -1 to hit and wound. But he will die. Like if the Eldar wants to kill him, they will kill him. So just bear that in mind, and I wouldn't recommend taking expensive units like that. Keep it cheap and cheerful, nice MSU, focus on playing the mission game and not trying to just kill the Eldar. But yeah, that's going to wrap this up for now. So thank you. On the screen, you can see the members of the YouTube channel, and these people pay membership to basically give me a bit of support. If you want to join them, you can feel free to hit the join button below. The support's been insane. It allows me to keep making these videos. I'm sorry the content sometimes takes a while. This video took a while. I do work full time. I have a dog and a missus as well, so this is like a hobby, like a side hobby for me. Even though I love it, I love making the videos, love making people happy. But yeah, the support is massively appreciated. If you want to be part of that, you get to join the Disgustingly Resilient Discord server, which we have going on, which is great. A good laugh in there. Lots of random topics, lots of lists being shared, etc. I'm on there quite actively, trying my best to interact with people. You also get to vote on upcoming topics and whatnot. This video itself was one of those upcoming topics that people voted for. I'm just going to go back a page, so that's a bit longer. But everyone that's sort of been part of the channel and it growing has been massively appreciated. And we're hoping to do more content going forward. This is only the second episode of Perfect Plague for the Eldar episode. Hopefully you've learned something today that might help you in your games against Eldar. Maybe just increase your knowledge of the Eldar faction and what is meta for the Eldar. And hopefully this might make your games go less horrible against Eldar. I know it's still really hard, but hopefully it's a little easier for you now. And last but not least, thank you to the Nurgle's Mansion Discord, my own Disgustingly Resilient Discord, and the Eldar Facebook group. So all these pictures you've seen of the Eldar models are from the Aeldari Facebook group. Thank you so much, guys, for letting me use your pictures. They look awesome. And all the other pictures from Death Guard are from Nurgle's Mansion and Disgustingly Resilient Discord. So thank you to everyone that provided those pictures. They're massively appreciated, and I really, really enjoy looking at people's models and putting them in part of the presentation. But for now, if you've been a viewer, a thank you to you too. Again, it's all unscripted, so I struggle at the end, like ad-libbing it or whatnot. But I massively appreciate you sticking through it, showing the support. Leave a like, leaving a subscribe helps so much more than you can think. The algorithm is a monster. But coming forward, I hope to see another episode of the Perfect Plague series. Faction Fundamentals is carrying on. Me and Will are recording very soon. It's been a while since me and Will have had an episode. People even thinking we've fallen out. We have not fallen out. I literally see him on Mondays when I go and play. We're all good. It's just conflicting schedules, etc. But I hope you enjoyed this. Leave your comments below. I do try and interact with people as much as possible. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. We'll catch you in the next episode of Disgustingly Resilient Podcast. And yeah, one last time for the road, Mister. Enjoying me watching a drink, fella. Refreshing. See you later, guys. Bye.